Howdy, howdy, Sudil here, and welcome to my video on selecting the factions I'll play in the upcoming tournament for Shadow Online Gaming. I wanted to go through my thought process on how I came up with the faction I'm going to play and some of the testing that I did. So this video is going to be long. It's really not for the faint of heart. I know there's some people that don't like this sort of thing. I'll try and summarize it at the end if that's for you. Just fast forward to the last 2 minutes and I'll summarize it. I know there's a lot of people who like to think their way through this with me and can appreciate the process. So for those of you who like the process, come along for the ride. I'm going to go through the pools again and the matchups. I'll talk a little bit about the players and what I know and how I've selected my factions I'm going to play and who I'm going to play them against. Now at this point I only knew this selection happened about a couple of weeks ago. I only knew who I was playing against, and we all had to select the factions we were going to play and who we were going to play them against ahead of schedule. So all of us had to do that before the other faction was revealed, so we all were in the dark until everyone got their factions in, and then we got to see and then start planning. So first of all, I'm just going to go through and look at the group. So I'm in Group A here with Black Iron Battles. I just put everyone in alphabetical order. Janet on Occasion, Jet R, Ragnarok, Total War, Shadow Online Gaming, Turin, and of course me. And in Group B is Dov Plays, Deacon, Gobble King, John Ton, Loremaster of Sotek, Scabs Gaming, and Zardar Total Warrior. Now, I do have some symbols beside each player, and just to give you an idea of who's in. Now, multiplayer and campaign are two very different games. They're completely different. Campaign is much slower. You can always expect the AI to do similar things, so you have you have a very different playstyle that's actually not conducive at all to multiplayer. You know, I mostly play campaign, but I like researching multiplayer, and I do enjoy some multiplayer as well, but I only play the DAOE. But I played enough to really understand it's a different game. So people who just play campaign really are at a disadvantage. So I wanted to point those guys out because just for your information. So I put this symbol beside Jet R, Ragnarok Total War, Deacon Total War, and Scabs Gaming. These guys just play campaign, so they don't play multiplayer at all. They played a little bit against Shadow Online Gaming. Shadow he's got a way of bringing people together, just getting them to come out of their comfort zone. He's an awesome guy. And again, go to his channel. Make sure you subscribe for all the tournament information. I'm just going to be giving my side of this tournament, but on the other side, we have some extremely good players. So with the 3 stars like Turin, Dov Plays, Gobble King, and John Ton, I believe all of these guys have been in the top 100 in the world. These guys are all fantastic. They're really, really strong players, and they've got to be the tournament favorites. I watched them lots, especially Turin. I mean, I was Turin's 150th subscriber. I've loved him ever since he started his channel about a month maybe after Total War came out, or that's when I started watching him. I really loved him because when Total War, the first game, first came out, the Dwarfs were clearly the worst multiplayer faction. It wasn't even close. They were the worst, and he played them all the time, and he played them well, and he started lots of memes, and he talks about Slayers doing karate kicks and Papa Grom and all the memes that he comes up with, and I've loved his channel just because of that. He played the DAOE early and often, and he really likes the DAOE, so I've always loved his channel. I do watch everyone else as well. There's no one on this list that I'm not subscribed to and don't watch. Janet on Occasion, I know he's been top 250. I don't know if he's broken top 200, but he is really good. And he started with campaign and plays a lot of multiplayer. Very interesting player. If you haven't gone to his channel and subscribed and watched him play, he has a very diverse lineup of factions he plays and how he plays them. He'll play autogen battles. He really has an interesting play style. Very, very good micro, really remembers on the edges, and also Lore Master of Sotek. So I was surprised. I always listen to Lore Master's lore videos, which I really, really love. If you like lore, go subscribe to him. He has lots of amazing lore videos. You know, I watch him with Italian Spartacus, Arch Warhammer. Well, there's about 5 or 6 lore video or lore YouTubers that I watch whenever they come out and bring out a video, and he's one of them. I didn't realize he was so good. He's kind of top 400, you know, and he plays in tournaments, and he's really been bringing up his game. I didn't know that. I've seen him kind of play a little bit here and there, and I've watched a few of his videos, but I didn't realize how good he was. So, you know, really, really fantastic. So this is kind of the group of guys that are playing, a very, very diverse group of people coming into this tournament. But my first target is to pick which factions I'm going to play. Now, of course, I'm going to play the Dawi. There is just no doubt about it. I'm playing the dwarfs, but I've never played in a tournament before, and I had to think about what I would do, and I thought a lot of my builds I has an option for just the Lord and just the Rune Lord, and I've also done testing on Clan Angrand, specifically these guys, King Lun, Throny, Dramar, and look, because they have causes fear and causes terror, and they're ethereal, then they do magic damage. So I have done some testing with them, and they're very good against, say, a faction like the Greenskins, who don't have a lot of magic damage unless they bring Azeg up in the sky with Spirit Leech or something like that, and are susceptible to fear and terror. So I wanted to bring the Dawi, knowing that I could always play the regular lords, and Belegar may be an option in some matchups, just to have these guys as an option for my army, and to also put that in the mind of my opponent that these guys may be on the field, so it could push them to bringing some magic damage, and something like a Rune Lord with his Locus of Power. You know, if I just loaded him out like this with the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and say brought Hackenhoff here, he's very, very tanky, and just strip him down, and maybe I can even bring these two things. I can bring the Tormentor Sword or not, but even stripped down at 1,000, he's very tanky, he's going to last in the pocket, he's got a silver shield, and he causes fear and terror. So this combination, giving him an additional, he has physical resistance, but he has no magic resistance. That Locus of Power is going to give him an extra 15% magic resistance, and my opponent would most likely choose an army that can deal with these guys in some way or shape or form. So if I do take him in, again, a matchup where he's going to be good, that's what I'm going to do. So this is the selection. I actually selected Clan Angrand for my dwarf army, so we'll just go and make this black. So my very first pick, of course, the dwarfs. I'm going to play Clan Angrand for those very reasons. Now, after this, I really didn't know. Like I said, I went and played a bunch of games. My initial thinking was that I wanted to play dwarf-like armies. So my first thought was the Empire, because I can bring Boris, like, there's two pretty good lord choices here with Boris Todbringer, specifically because, where is it? You can bring this replenish hit points, so he regenerates, and you've got the White Cloak of Ulrich, -9 melee attack. You can put him on different mounts, you know, a war horse, or you can even put him up in the air with 2 options. He's relatively inexpensive, quite a good lord. And there's a ton of magic options. And, you know, if you want, you know, a Jade Wizard and you want to give regrowth to heal, Earthblood, this type of thing, you can get a Light Wizard, so you can get that Net of Ammon talk. You know, Empire has a lot of options for their lords and heroes. Very, very strong type of pick. And you can also get the Balthasar Gelt build. Get him, if you want, you can always put him up on a Pegasus, or just have him running around. Give him some good They'll give him Arcane Conduit, things like that. What is that? It greatly increases power. And really just give him that final transmutation if you want. Give the double Witch Hunter build where they both have Accusation for relatively cheap. And this is a very strong core as well because you have your magic and you have this final transmutation along with the accusations, which are really effective at lord killing. These options are outstanding for the Empire. Very broad set of options, so I really like that idea. Plus their infantry is okay. You know, their great swords are solid, and I like that. I like the idea of great swords as the Dawi. The Sigmar Sons are actually quite annoying to play against because they're unbreakable and they last for a really long time. You know, you can bring Flagellants, but they're not so good. Their swordsmen really kind of piss poor, if you ask me. But their spearmen, so we did some testing. You know, you can protect the edges pretty cheaply. These guys aren't too bad for their price. They have good ranged options in the crossbowmen. If you want for only 500, you can get them out on your edges. They got decent range. They don't have shields or armors. They do have the silver bullets, which is actually really good because they do magical damage, and they do have handgunners, which do armor piercing. So they have options there, and their cavalry is really, really strong all the way through, from their anti-large griffins, their anti-infantry options. They do flaming damage. You know, they have these outriders, which are really good. They have armor piercing missile damage. The grenade launchers are, you know, really good, and their artillery is really good too. They have very good options. I do like their great cannons. They're strong pick. The Hammer of the Witches is actually very, very good. Let's say you got matched up against a vampire count. This Hammer of Witches doing magical damage would just eat up, you know, some of those ethereal units that the vampires can bring. You know, they have a Luminarch, which is an option. I don't think the steam tanks are all that good. You know, Hellstorm Rocket Battery it would be okay against maybe the Beastmen or Greenskins. The Hellblaster Volley Gun is a very strong piece of artillery. So this was my thinking. I thought, well, the Empire might be a very good choice. So I went and played, I don't know, 6 or 7 games with these guys, and I lost 5 out of 6 and found that they struggle. Now, I struggle because I've only played the dwarfs, but I really didn't like them. They didn't feel right to me, even with the Balthasar Gelt build and the Boris Todbringer build, but could just be my play. I really didn't enjoy them, and I did find them to be weak. And I've been doing some research on tournament play and top tier play, and the Empire seems to be more at the bottom tier. They seem to be a faction that can have very, very poor matchups, which is bad choice for a tournament. And it matched my experience. I really struggled to perform well with them. Now, I know there's players like Janet's really strong on these guys, so is Zardar. I think Dav plays really strong with the Empire. I am not. So I kind of eliminated them really up front because I just couldn't play with them, even though they have lots of options. And I think it came down to their infantry was just not strong enough to let me do what I wanted to do with the rest of their army. Like, their great swords are decent, but they're not outstanding. I mean, when the game first came out, these great swords were absolutely crushing. Flagellants used to be amazing, you know, but their infantry is just subpar right now, and you really see it when you're playing them. So I also thought, so I eliminated the Empire. This was my thinking. I thought they'd be a good dwarf-like army. I've always been jealous of some of their artillery, so I thought I'd enjoy playing them. But really, I didn't. Their infantry just can't hold and let the rest of your army do what you want them to do. They're really poor. But they make up for it with cavalry. Maybe if I was better with cavalry, I would enjoy them more. But I can't cycle charge. I can't hammer an anvil fast enough to make really good use. So I thought, what about Bretonnia? Now, I have done some testing with Bretonnia against the miners. They do have King Lewin, and he, again, has an item where is it? Abilities, replenishes hit points, so he can regenerate, and you can get him up in the air or on the ground. And they also have the Fey Enchantress, which this is something that I've really found out. A lot of the on-meta Lord picks are Lords that also have spells. So you only need to bring one heroic unit. You don't need to bring a Lord and then a caster. And those tend to be on-meta picks or highly sought-after units because with the Fey Enchantress, you can just bring her with Earthblood and Regrowth. I think give her the Chalice of Potions if you like. For a bombardment, you get to use it twice. The Favor of the Fae, I don't know. Arcane Conduit for sure. Mist of the Lady, I think this is really good. It causes damage to combatants. It's almost like a Mortis engine. And the Life Bloom, so every time you cast a spell, you replenish the hit points of combatants, everyone on the field for 5 seconds. So at only, I think, 1600, you get a really good Lord. So these tend to be the on-meta picks, or tend to be generally pretty good because they're casters and they offer something. So I think the Fey Enchantress is generally the best pick for Bretonnia. I did try both King Lewin and the Fey Enchantress. I also tried the Green Knight. But what I really wanted to try with Bretonnia is they have lots of cheap infantry. You can bring a line with 4-foot squires because they are armored and they are anti-infantry. You can bring some battle pilgrims. They're shielded. They have frenzy. You can have in your back arms, your back lines, men-at-arms with pole arms for anti-large armor piercing. You can put in your front line some men-at-arms with shields. You can even have just basic men-at-arms for 250 and spearmen at arms, anti-large charge defense against large. You can see I still have money left. I can, I can bring in a couple peasants, and I still have 3,300. I haven't even looked at my and the bowmen are decent. 160. You can bring flame, poison. You kind of have options with these types of units, and if I wanted to bring 2 really expensive like Grail Knights, bang, there's my army. I grab some guys, chevron them up, and away we go. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Bang, there's an army. It's very wide, has a caster, has some decent knights, has some peasant bowmen with that poison. I tried this army, and boy, is it hard to play Bretonnia. Holy cow! These guys are always routing. There is never a second. 4 seconds after the front line engages, you got someone routing, and you have people routing for the entire match. Half the battle of playing Bretonnia well is just being good at bringing guys back from routing. I am not even kidding a little. It was absolutely insane. They have awesome cavalry, and they even have artillery picks. They have flying monsters. You can bring in good squads. And I thought, well, these foot squires are actually in a pretty good price point, but their melee attack and melee defense are quite low. Battle pilgrims are not too bad. I thought maybe they could work, but I found it looks fun to play, but it is a struggle. When I'm used to Longbeards who will almost fight to the last dwarf, and these guys will take a charge and run away, and then they'll come back, and then they'll run away, and then they'll come back. You can't rely on them to do anything, with the exception of some of your cav. These Grail Guardians are pretty spectacular, actually, and this is reasonable. But I did play Bretonnia, and I again got crushed. I didn't win a single game with them, and I found it exacerbated my lack of my lack of skills and ability to keep track of all my units. It really exacerbated that part of my game where I'm really, really weak. And yes, I want to work on my micro. Yes, I want to get better at picking up routing units. Yes, I want to be able to be more aware of what's going on in the edges as I improve my multiplayer. But this is a tournament. This is happening. I gotta bring an army that I can at least control, and I can't control Bretonnia. So at this point, I thought these two armies might be interesting and fun to play, and I really didn't know what to do. So I really had to think about it. I thought, well, I have done some research on armies, and came up with dwarf armies against them. So I have good experience with their units. So I thought, well, let's pick the Lizardmen. That was my first pick. I'm going to pick the Lizardmen because I've done a massive amount of testing against the Lizardmen. I know their infantry is good. These Saurus Warriors, you bring 5 Saurus Warriors against anything, they may be outclassed in some matchups, but not by a lot. They have good leadership. They will survive. They have very good stats, good weapon strength. In that weapon strength, they have 18 armor piercing. They're just good all-around units. They also have the spears, which are good backline. You can have them shielded or without shields for 750. Very good unit. And you also have these skink cohorts with shields, which I've found in some matchups. I mean, they're very weak, but they can be useful to tie up weaker units or to chase off skirmishers. They're pretty fast, 46 speed. They're weak leadership, but they're an interesting unit. And they have very good skirmishers in these chameleon skinks with 48 speed, and they do poison. They have 2 really, really good lords. So the advantage of these guys is you can get Mazdamundi, and if you don't put him on a mount, he's just fine. Actually, I was surprised with what he can do. You can get Arcane Conduit, Shield of the Old Ones for magic resistance if you want. I don't know how useful that is. It depends. Banishment. These are just bound. Ruination of Cities. If you want, you can bring with him this Sunburst standard of Hexawaddle. So 12% missile resistance and +9 melee defense around 40 meters around him can be very good in a matchup. If you got up against the Wood Elves or the High Elves, someone who might have a lot of, or the Dark Elves who might try to burst Mazdamundi down. The spell loadout he has is decent. You can get Nets of Amontok. I really like Harmonic Convergence, and where is it? Curse of the Midnight Wind. This Harmonic Convergence is only 6 magic. 6 winds of magic, +26 melee attack, +27 melee defense. Excellent. And the Curse of the Midnight Wind, -30 armor, -26 melee attack in a 40-meter radius. For 1,286, you can bring him with a pretty good loadout. And you can always put him on Zlak if you want. You can always add some extra things. He's pretty flexible. And the other option is really Kroq-Gar. You can put him on Grimlock. He's anti-large, armor piercing. He's a very, very good duelist. You can give him Deadly Onslaught, Sacred Spawning of Zothal, 22% physical resistance in the Vigor, Swiftness with Itzel, which is really good if you get bogged up in infantry. Just hit this and bang, he explodes and you can run. And if you want, you can give him Hand of the Gods. You can get him at pretty expensive at 2802, or if you really want to pull him down to something cheaper, you can bring him at 2200. But even at just on his regular mount, or just even on foot, but just on his regular mount for 1500, he still is armor piercing, has good stats, and is anti-large. That anti-large is a bonus versus large of 22, which is pretty significant. His melee attack against large is going to be 79. Really, really strong lord. And then you can just bring the skink priest you want. So if you want, beasts or heavens, you can bring the spell loadout that you like with your priest. So I really I like this because I have experience against all these units. And the Cav, we know the Feral Cold Ones can be really good. These Horned Ones and Cold One Spear Riders, they're not all that great, but they're okay. Kroxigors are an option. Feral Bastilinons, you do have the Revivification Crystal for the healing, Feral Stegonons, Feral Carnosaurs, and you have options in the air and artillery. So you can get a Laser Lizard, a Bastilinon for 1100 with 240 range, and it does magic damage, and it has blinded, I think, yep, for 10 seconds, -26 melee attack, -40% accuracy, -27 melee defense. So really interesting. And they have Pterodon Riders. Now these Pterodon Riders are actually pretty good because they do poison, and they're pretty quick in the air, 90 speed. They're decent enough melee stats, especially when you get its 16 charge bonus. They can do some damage, and so just a good all-arounder. So this was my first non-dwarf pick. I've done a lot of videos on the Lizardmen. I'm confident in their infantry. I know their infantry is solid. You know, you can put temple guards in the back line. I know their lord picks are good. I know they are a strong faction in that they don't have a ton of other factions they're weak to. So this really suited me. So I thought, well, Lizardmen will be my second pick. I've done lots of research, and I know the faction. I'm going to play them. I think I can reasonably play them. They've got the... Not that I'm going to do well with them. not at all. But I can play them, and they make sense to me. So I picked the Lizardmen next, and I kept going around, and on that same thought, I thought, well, why not the Dark Elves? I have done some testing against the Dark Elves. I haven't released much yet, because I really want to put it together as a package. But when we go to the Dark Elves, they also have good, solid options. Now, the nice part about the Dark Elves is they have two good lord options in that Malekith. I mean, you can put him on a dragon if you want. If you want to cut him down, he's still pretty expensive even on his dragon, but you've got abilities that are pretty darn good, and you've got some spells that are useful as well. Now, this is the ability with him. Where is it? Gaze of Malice. So this is actually really good. So Spiteful Conjuration. Every time you cast a spell for 18 seconds, all the enemies have minus 15 armor. I really like that. And they also have the ability to bring Morathi, again, a spellcaster. You can put her up in the air as well. So I think Malekith is the more of the on meta build, obviously, but I really like that Spiteful Conjuration. And, you know, just even on a cold one, let me see. You know, he can bring Soul Stealer, which is good. It's like you cast it and it's a heal, a self-heal. Doombolt, Blade Wind, meh. Word of Pain. I actually thought this would be interesting in some matchups. You cast that Word of Pain on something that, you know, like, it's not just good for the minus 44 melee attack, but the minus 60 accuracy might be useful. This Chill Wind, which is really cheap, and the Power of Darkness, which is again, you can cast this, it hurts yourself, but it procs this ability, minus 15 armor, and it gives you more winds of magic, so that you can cast Chill Wind again, which is really cheap, or this Soul Stealer. So I really quite like the Lord choices. You can bring a Khainite Assassin or a Death Hag. I do also like their infantry. So I have done some testing on their infantry. I have a video up of some of the basic testing I did on their infantry. All of their infantry is solid. There are no real weaknesses. They just don't have any fodder. So these Dread Spears, Silver Shield, anti-large, decent stats, plus they have that Murderous Prowess, which can proc, and their Bleak Swords, again, could be good against Chaff infantry. Their Black Ark Corsairs, decent anti-infantry. Their bonus versus infantry is actually 7, which is really solid. Their stats are good. Witch Elves, which we tested, and I know them to be really good against the Dwarves who are armored, because they have this 20% physical resistance, and they do have Murderous Mastery, and they have this, which is the Madness of Cain. So what they're really good for, aside from being decent in melee, because they have anti-infantry, is if they catch something like a lord who's trying to just waddle through your lines, it gives them rampage for 15 seconds, so they can't, because they lose control of them, so they're really good. And the Hargoneth Executioners, very strong, armored, anti-armor, armor-piercing infantry, and the Blackguard of Nagaragon, again, a very strong backline infantry. I know their missile infantry is good, lots of armor piercing. They do have some non-armor piercing options, I think. Yep, these Black Ark Corsairs with hand bows, and they all have decent melee stats. I really like that. Their cavalry is okay. I don't think it's the best, but they do have some skirmish cav. Where are these? These Dark Riders with a repeater crossbow, 115 range and armor piercing, which is good. They do have a Cold One Chariot. And I really like that they have Harpies. So Harpies can be really good. They actually have really good stats, 22 and 38 melee defense. They have Vanguard deployment, 20 charge bonus. They're very fast, 82, which is pretty decent. They do have an artillery option. Their artillery is quite weak, to be honest. And you can also get dragons and a War Hydra. So I like this pick. They have two, well, really one on meta lord, but a Morathi who is an option for sure as a caster lord as well. Good infantry, good ranged, some cav options, and these harpies and everything else. So I kind of like this pick. And I thought, yeah, well, I've done some research. I know their infantry is good. I know they can do what I would like them to do if I'm in a matchup with them. So I selected the Dark Elves. Now, the next army I looked at was, again, another one that I've done research on, and that is the Tomb Kings. So I hadn't done tons of research on the Tomb Kings, but I did enough to kind of get them. Now, I know they're not the ultimate best pick, maybe for a tournament, but I kind of like some things about them. And when I go through them in more detail, I'll show you kind of the dwarf way I think about them, which may be skewed compared to other players and strong multiplayer players and ladder players. But my thinking was they have, again, two lords, Archon the Black, who is the meta pick, although you're not allowed to bring, which is it? The Tombblade of Archon, where is it? That's it. You're not allowed to bring this. It's just too powerful. It's one of those things that is banned in this tournament. But, I mean, he's really, really good. And his spells, he's got Lore of Death, so he's got the Fate of Yuna, which can delete a unit, a full unit. He's got Doom and Darkness. I've tested that. That could be really good against some factions if you just want to give them a leadership bomb. And Spirit Leech. So just those two spells, he can be pretty good. I also really like Cetra the Imperishable. Because of which ability is it? Not his curse. The Restless Dead. So every time you cast a spell, it heals all your forces, which I really like. And his spells are actually not too bad. Where's the ones that I like on him? Yes, it's these two. So 44% physical resistance, only for 6 winds of magic, and cast it on himself or an ally. And the incantation of Cursed Blades, 20% weapon damage and 20% armor piercing damage for only 4 winds of magic. So you can cycle through his spells just using these, which are both really good, and you can keep proccing this heal. And he has actually +5 melee attack, +5 melee defense. And his mounts. You can mount him, you don't have to mount him, but you can mount him on a Skeletal Seed, and then he's anti-large. And you can mount him on a Kemrian War Sphinx, and he's anti-infantry. Or you can put him on the Chariot of the Gods, which again is anti-infantry. So I really like the Lords, and I have done some testing against them. The main thing I like is this Necrotech. And in the video that I did against him, I like the idea of him being on a skeleton. He can heal the big, like, Harrow Titans and Necrosphinx, these kind of guys. He can heal them for a ton. This heal is no joke. It heals a lot. And you can also, where's the ability, which I really like, this one, Elixir of Might. For 76 gold, for 36 seconds, you can cast it on yourself or an ally, 50% weapon damage plus 26 melee attack. Bang. Put that on this guy, and he's doing almost like 800 weapon strength. And he's got plus 26 melee attack, so he's like he's 70 melee attack. Just ridiculous. So I really like that Necrotech and the 2 Lord options. Now the big weakness of the Tomb Kings, which I talked about, is their infantry is awful. So I thought, well, they're not awful against everybody. They're awful against the Dowie. They're awful against the Dark Elves. I mean, they're awful against most. But you can make something up. I do like the fact that they do have some archers with 140 range, and they do have this Blessed Legion of Fox, and they have the ability, where is it, to sunder armor, so minus 30 armor. They do have some cav options, some skeleton horsemen. I do really like these carrion. So this is actually a unit I quite like. Only 350. Look at the stats you get for 350. Oh my god. 26 and 46. 26 melee attack, 46 melee defense. Ridiculous. 40 weapon strength, 100 speed. So these guys are just fantastic. I quite like them. Plus, so now we get to their constructs. You know, these Chosen of the Gods, Ushabti with great bows. I really, really like these guys. They have armor piercing, shield breaker, it reduces missile parry. They have 255 range. This makes up for some of their weaknesses. Now, obviously their constructs are pretty amazing. Ushabti for armor piercing. They do have decent enough cavalry options. Their big constructs are pretty impressive. These Tomb Scorpions are actually really awesome. And they do have some artillery options. Now these artillery are really weak. Like this Screaming Skull Catapult, -8 leadership, armor piercing, I don't know. Magic damage, 380 range. Now this Casket of Souls, maybe a little better. Great increase to power reserves, I don't know. But they do have options, and they can fit somewhat into my Dowie brain. I can think of how to use these guys and things that I like about them, although putting together an army, not so easy. So Tomb Kings was my pick. For the next pick that I decided that I'm going to play, again, another army that I've studied, Beastmen. So the Beastmen I've definitely done some research on. I did some testing with Soulhammer. I haven't released it. I want to put together a full package. But I know in the testing that I've done, they're quite good. And I know they are one of the better tournament factions. They're very, very strong and for good reasons. So we'll go over the Beastmen. Let me see. Where are they? The Beastmen? Now they have Malagar the Dark Omen. Is that who it is? Yeah, so Malagar the Dark Omen you can bring, and he is a spellcaster. But he's not the on-meta pick. Really, the pick is Morgor the Shadowgrave. The Khazrak the One-Eye, definitely not. It's Morgor the Shadowgrave now, a Shadowgave. Now the reason is he's got this Spirit Essence of Chaos, which spawns a unit of Chaos spawn for free, which is completely awesome. He's also got, where is it? The items. The Staff of Ruinous Corruption spawns a unit of Chaos spawn. And where is it? And he has regeneration. And he has poison damage. So he has decent enough stats. No armor. I believe he has magic resistance, missile resistance, 75%. He's just a strong lord. He's very rugged, survivable, and he has some really good items. So you put these things on. You can have the Call of Violence for 16 leadership and Foe Seeker to give him a little bit of speed. His speed is pretty good, 39. So he's a really strong pick, and you can always bring a Gorbol. He does have a Brave Shaman of Death, which does give you access to that Fade Abuna and Spirit Leech. He has a Brave Shaman of the Wild, which I think you can spawn a Cygor. And where is the Brave Shaman of Beast? You can spawn a Manticore, I think. Where's the spells? Yeah, spawn a Manticore. So there's decent options there. The infantry, not great, with the exception of the Bestigor. The Bestigors are really the only standout unit, which are in armor piercing, good charge bonus, good speed, okay leadership. That's their real good unit. They don't have much for missile infantry, but these Ungor Raiders are okay-ish if they're up against something that does not have a lot of armor. And they do have Primal Fury, which if their leadership's above 50%, they're immune to psychology, so they can't be fear-bombed. Well, they can be routed off pretty good. But they're 36 speed, so they can kite, and they have stock. So they're okay. Really, where the bread and butter of this army is in these Centaurs, I think. The Centaurs at 700, they have 84 speed. The Centaurs with great weapons have 84 speed, 42 charge bonus, armor piercing. And the Centaurs with throwing axes. Their throwing axes do armor piercing. They don't have much range at 70, but again, they're pretty quick. they're decent enough in melee that they can get by. So that's kind of, this I think makes their army. Plus they have infinite vigor. What is it? Rowdy. Perfect vigor. So they never get tired. So their stats stay the same, which really means that if you have Centaurs in the late game, this is where they're really powerful. Now for their backline, they do again have options. They have these Chaos Warhounds with poison are quite strong, and they're used in a lot of matchups. I often see good players putting Chaos Warriors with the Centaurs, which are quite good. They do have armor piercing with the Razor Gore Herd, although I don't see them used very often. They do have Harpies, and I do like Harpies. I kind of like them. They do have Chaos Spawn, you don't see very often. Minotaurs are situational, but in the right situation, they're very strong because they have armor piercing. You can get them with anti-large. You can get them shielded or non-shielded with a silver shield to boot. And they do have a couple monsters in the Cygor. So Cygors can be really strong as artillery with that 415 damage, and when you get them into a fight, they do cause fear and terror, and they can do their weapon strength is armor piercing, and they have the option of a giant. So I know the Beastmen to be good, and this was my thinking. I'm definitely going to select them. So I've got, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matchups, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So who was I going to select for my last matchup? And I really didn't know. So I thought and thought about this, and back to the drawing board. Maybe the Skaven. Skaven have Skrull. He's an on-meta pick. You can look at really big, broad armies. Doom Wheels I know are good, and I know their Warp Lightning Cannon is actually really solid. I really thought about these guys. There's nothing wrong with Skaven. They can play well, and they have options if you want Queek Head Taker and something else. But Skrull, he has the ability to spawn Plague Monks. He has some other spawns, I think, which are actually really good. The Vermintide spawns a unit of Clan Rats. He has Wither, minus 30 armor. Blessed with Filth, which is poisoning him 40 meters around. Pestilent Breath. He has Aura of Pestilence. So Skrull's a pretty good leader. And this was a consideration. The Skaven army does have some range, so these Deathglobe Bombardiers will have 85 range and do armor piercing. And where's these other guys I like? These guys, actually. So Gutter Runner Slingers. No, where is it? Gutter Runner Slingers. These are not them. Gutter Runner Slingers with poison. So they have 140 range, and they do poison damage. They're pretty quick. They have Vanguard deployment, stock. They have physical resistance. I kind of really find them to be an interesting unit when you put them with these Deathglobe Bombardiers. Where's the other ones that I really liked? Poison Wind Globatiers as a possibility. They have 85 range. The Deathglobe Bombardiers 85. So these Deathglobe Bombardiers do a lot more damage at 900, but I kind of like those options. And for infantry, they're on the weak side. You have to play their infantry a very specific way, I think, with depending on who you're up against. The Death Runners can be really good. The Storm Vermin with Halberd are decent in the backline. Storm Vermin are actually good infantry. They're just missing one thing, and that is an armor piercing variant. They just 34 weapon strength, only 9 armor piercing at 1050. It's not good enough, I don't think. Plague Monk Sensor Bearers, they do have armor piercing, and they do contaminated and magic damage. So there's options for sure. There's nothing wrong with Skaven. I didn't want to play them. I just didn't feel it. And so I thought, well, what about the Wood Elves? So I know the Wood Elves are quite strong. Orion is strong. You can get a Glade Lord. They have Lore of Life. They have very, very strong missile infantry, particularly these Way Watchers, which are ridiculously good. You get 2 Way Watchers. They do 29 armor piercing, or 29 missile damage with 20 armor piercing. They have 190 range. 24 ammo. They can 2 of these guys focused, or 3 of them focused. I think you can only take 2 of them. I can't remember. Are going to kill pretty much anything. They're cavalry. I know these Wild Riders are decent. These Glade Riders, where the Sisters of the Thorn are decent because they have a magic spell. They have a dragon. They have treemen. Their infantry, on the weak side, I would say. These Dryads do magic damage. Their stats aren't the greatest. They have a little bit of armor. They just don't have armor all the way around. War Dancers, they're kind of glass cannony, I guess. But they were an option. So I kept on going through the options. I said, okay, not the what else. I thought, what about the Warriors of Chaos? So Warriors of Chaos actually do have some options in that they have some lore options with magic, and they have the Lore of Death if you want. They do have good infantry. Like, I know Chaos Warriors with great weapons, very good infantry. Chosen are outstanding. And they do have the Hell Cannon, which I know is good range, magical damage, armor piercing. I thought, well, maybe this could be a very, very good pick for me, in that they can be quite, we'll say, dwarfy. And they have, Forsaken, which are a pretty decent pick. And if I just want basic Chaos Warriors at 750, they have 36 melee attack, 44 melee defense, 100 armor, a silver shield, decent charge bonus actually, good weapon strength, 10 armor piercing at 750. I mean, their infantry is really good. It's dwarf-like infantry, even though I'd say the Chosen outclass Hammers and Chaos Warriors outclass Longbeards, but Chaos Warriors 750, Longbeards 650, but really good, okay enough cavalry. They do have Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, which can help anti-skirmish. They do have those Poison Warhounds, which are a very popular pick. They do have some Monstrous. They have Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. You can bring Kolek the Sun Eater. I know he's very popular. When you're looking at your army, you can bring Prince Sigvald if you want regeneration. I think he has regeneration. Yep. Although he doesn't have a mount, so he's a little bit weak. I think Archaon, the Everchosen, has magic. Yep. Although his is fire magic. But, and Sathrol, the Everwatcher, I think can be good in some matches. I'm not really, I'm not an expert on anything other than the Dowie. But I know Sathrol, he does have spells, and he can be difficult to take down. I think he has 60% missile resistance, 25%, and he causes fear and terror. So there's options. So I played the Warriors of Chaos. I played Chaos in quite a few games and got crushed. I mean, demolished. I mean, I love the Hell Cannon because I hate fighting against it, and I really, really struggled. What's funny is Chaos, I think, is a good tournament faction, because they don't have a lot of really crazy weak matchups by the research that I've been doing. But they just, I couldn't make them work for me. So I thought, well, what else do I know? And I thought, well, sure do know the Greenskins. I've played against them so much. I know their units, and they have good units. Like, they have Black Orcs, they have Savage Orcs, which I know to be good. These nasty Skulkers can really be nasty. So this is my last pick, and they have some on-meta lords, 2 of them, in fact. Wurzag has spells, very specifically, he has, I think, Fist of Gork, Irigo, okay, plus 44 melee attack. He has, Fist of Gork, plus 26 melee attack, and he Brain Bursta, Gaze of Mork. The big thing he has, which I really, really like, is not the War Paint of Wurzag, 11% physical resistance, but where is it? Is it in over here? Yeah, triggers when you cast a spell. So every time you cast a spell, everybody on the map has plus 13 melee attack with this Bonewood Staff. Ridiculous. It is so good. And improved power recharge rate. And the other potential lord is Azeg the Slaughterer, which I like. Again, he has Lore of Death, so he has the Fate of Buna and, you know, Spirit Leech, so he can bring a real light loadout. You know, you can, depending on how you want to set him up, and you can put him in the sky with Skull Muncha, causing fear and terror. So let me see. So you put him in the sky. He does cause fear and terror. Has 110 speed, poison attacks, armor piercing. You know, so this is really, I think, has a lot of options. And so this is my last pick. And you know, and these Goblin Big Bosses, actually, you put them on a giant spider, strip them down. For 500, they got 78 speed, do poison damage, and they can have 60 charge bonus. So when they hit their charge, they got 100 melee attack. So even though they don't have a lot of weapon strength, they can poison what they're fighting. And you can kind of get a goon squad going with these guys, where they're reasonably quick, and they, for 1,000, you get 2 people poisoning and attacking something. You have Strider, and they have Encourage, so they're pretty decent. I know the infantry has options. It's maybe not the best infantry in the game, but it's not the worst. Like, their infantry choices are good. Because I did do some testing with Orc Big Guns and Savage Orc Big Guns, Savage Orcs, Nasty Skulkers, everything. And, I mean, they have some kind of ranged options. I'd say their Missile Infantry is weak. The Rusty Arrows, they're okay. They do that armor sundering, but they only have 115 range. And their cavalry options are reasonable, particularly on their skirmishing cav. So their cav options, where they have these Goblin Wolf Riders. These guys are actually really good because they're not good to go and send them into combat. What they're good for is just to have one unit in your army to go chase off routing units. They're super fast, 92 speed. You can just hold them back. And all game, like, I did play some games with these guys, and I think I won one, and I had some close matchups with them, and so I kind of like these, at least one unit of Goblin Wolf Riders just to stay till the very end of the game. They're only 300, and then their whole job is to chase off routing units, and they do a fantastic job at it. They have options with the Squig Hoppers. Their Missile Cav, Skirmishers, pretty good. The Mangy Marauders, 100 range. These Deaf Creepers do poison damage, 100 range. They have regeneration as well. They're not bad artillery. I mean, it's not great, but the Hammer of Gork is okay. And it has this blinded minus 26 melee attack and minus 27 melee defense, which is quite good. The Doomdiver Catapult actually used to be the strongest artillery in the game a long time ago, but now it's pretty weak. They have decent monstrous options with the Arachnarok Spiders. In some matchups, these Arachnarok Kreen can be pretty good, and you have the options of the Giants. So this was my last pick. I'm going to play the Greenskins. I do know them. I haven't done a ton of testing against them, but I mean, I've played against them in campaign a million times. Now, it doesn't mean that playing against them in campaign is anything like playing in multiplayer, because it isn't. They're two completely separate games. So, the Greenskins, that was my last pick for the first armies that I'm going to play. Now, who was I going to play them against? This is where I really started to think. I know I'm going to struggle against some of these really good players, and I know that having played, like, I've played Shadow, I've played Zardar, I've played Deacon, a lot of these guys already, and I know their fundamental skills, their micro, their click rate, their click speed, their knowledge of different parts of the game, in the simple mechanics of it, are definitely better than mine. The one thing that I have in my favor is planning and testing and this type of thing. This is where I can excel, in the game. And I thought, well, the Dwarfs, if I play the Dwarfs against Jet R or Ragnarok, they're really going to struggle. Because I know how to play the Dwarfs in multiplayer. They don't play multiplayer. Without the Dwarfs and me playing, something else, and I probably I'm probably even up with these guys, 50-50. Maybe they have an advantage, maybe I have an advantage because I have multiplayer experience and they don't. If I play the dwarfs against them, I can probably, bring my win rate from 50-50 to maybe 80-20, something like that, because I have experience playing the dwarfs in multiplayer, and I can do that. But in my thoughts, the one thing I didn't want to do is go as I don't want to lose all my games. I want to win one, at least win one. So I thought, well, maybe I can play the dwarfs against and put them in my best chance to win. But I thought to myself, I can't do that. My one of my favorite players is Turin. He loves the dwarfs. I want to play my absolute best faction against who I consider is the an outstanding player and someone I love playing. So even though this might cost me, make me go 0-6, I don't care. I'm playing the dwarfs against Turin. So I know I've seen some comments already. Can't wait to see, someone will say I can't wait. Hopefully play dwarfs against Turin, and and yes, so this could cost me very, very dearly, but I'm playing the dwarfs against Turin. I was looking at some of these guys and how they play, doing a little research, and I'll do a video before each of the battles, after the battle is played, but before it is aired, to go over my thinking. I'll give you some little bits of insight to why I picked who I picked and against who I picked them. The next person I picked was actually Ragnarok. So I was watching Ragnarok. He only has 3 multiplayer games against Shadow, but he's pretty decent in campaign, and he plays campaign like I play campaign a lot of ways. He likes very structured armies. He likes using terrain. He really does like low tier and mid tier infantry, which I like. In campaign, I love Dwarf Warriors. But in multiplayer, Dwarf Warriors just can't cut it. You need Longbeards, some Dwarf Warriors maybe, but so I thought I want to bring good infantry against Ragnarok, something that's solid, and Ragnarok, anyone who doesn't play multiplayer, so this is where I struggle, because I played a lot of campaign, like massive amounts of campaign before even Warhammer, before I ever played any multiplayer. So Warhammer was the first multiplayer I played, but I played, Medieval Total War, Medieval Total War 2. I played a lot of that. So I know where I struggle a lot is with flanking units and Vanguard deployed units. So I thought, well, I'm going to bring the Dark Elves. I think they'll be a strong choice. Good infantry. Bring them up against Ragnarok. I can expect him to bring a decent infantry line and not a massive skirmish build or something like that, because I know I'm going to struggle against the skirmish build if I come up against it. But I think the only person on this group that might bring a skirmish build is Janet. Janet can bring anything though. Like he's very diverse. He has a very diverse playlist when you watch his videos, because he plays all kinds of stuff. He does stuff just for fun. He does experimentation. Turn does that too. I would say Janet is even more diverse, because he'll play much wider lines and kind of even crazier builds, and he'll auto-gen armies. So if there is a chance that I'm going to come up against a skirmish build, which I really struggle with, it's going to be up against Janet. So I thought good, strong infantry I'll put up against Ragnarok. Now, I did think a lot about what I was going to play against Janet. A skirmish build was something I was definitely scared of. I've played it against it online on ladder, and it is painful. It is so difficult to counter, and I don't know how to do it. I know how to do it with the dwarfs. If you're going to be facing skirmish, you bring artillery. A flame cannon and a cannon or bolt throwers, and it just defeats skirmish. Skirmish can't beat artillery. Well, I say that. Skirmish can beat artillery. Artillery makes skirmishing builds more difficult to execute. The builds that skirmish builds really excel against is heavy infantry builds with slow units that can't catch the skirmishers. So for that reason, I wanted to bring the Beastmen up against Janet, so that if he did happen to bring a skirmish build, I would at least have something to counter it, because I think he's the only one on this list that would bring a really heavy skirmish build. He doesn't really play a lot of skirmish build, but he can, and I've seen him do it, and he's good with all kinds of builds in his hand. So in case he did, I wanted a fast build against him. So I brought the Beastman. Now, against Shadow, so to show Shadow, I've watched his videos, and Shadow is the most unpredictable player in the tournament. Now, he plays a lot of different types of builds, but he is absolutely unpredictable. He could bring anything, on meta, off meta, some crazy mixture, but he always has a theme and an idea behind his armies, no matter what they are. So with the most unpredictable opponent, I wanted to bring the most stable army, and I really thought the Lizardmen are going to be quite stable, because they have infantry that matches up good against just about everybody. They have pretty basic units, and they don't have regiments of renown, but all their units are pretty solid. So I thought, well, I can't guess what Shadow's going to bring. He's very, very unpredictable. So I thought, well, that's where I'll bring my most predictable army. So now just have Black Iron on Battles and Jet R. I didn't really know what to pick. I thought out of the two I have left, Tomb Kings and Greenskins, I thought I wanted something more flexible against Black Iron, because he plays on meta build. He's a really good player, and I've talked with him, and I've actually learned a lot from him as well. So I thought I'm going to bring the Greenskins against Black Iron, because they are going to be flexible depending on what he brings. And then last but certainly not least, I'm going to bring those Tomb Kings up against Jet. So Tomb Kings, I don't really know how to play, but I do have some multiplayer experience. Jet doesn't have a whole lot of multiplayer experience, so these guys without multiplayer experience are really, it's a different game. So, but you know, everyone playing, I love it. It's been a really good experience so far, and so that's my lineup. I'm going to bring the Greenskins against Black Iron Battle, so I have something flexible. Beastman against Janet, in case he brings a skirmish build. I don't think he will. He actually really just likes to line up and fight when he's playing seriously. I mean, he likes to brawl, kind of like him and Turn have quite a bit in common, in that they just like to line up and fight, and then let the game develop and play as things go. Jet got the Tomb Kings. Wasn't really sure what to bring up against him, because it's not really, maybe just has campaign, doesn't have a lot of multiplayer to do research on. Ragnarok, I did notice Ragnarok really likes good solid infantry lines, 4 to 6 archers in the back, kind of a classic total war build out. So I mean, I didn't see if he's played older Total War, but I imagine he has, just by watching how he plays in his army makeup and his use of train. He's definitely got some kind of medieval or Rome or something as well. So just a good solid lineup the Dark Elves will be. Shadow, again, completely unpredictable. Have no idea what he's going to bring, and when I find out what he's bringing, I have no idea. I have no idea what he is going to bring as an army. And then Turn, got to play the Dwarfs against Turn. My very best. The best I can do. I want to be my very best. So the very last thing is what did my opponents pick? So once I sent all mine out, I got back what everyone else was going to pick. So first and foremost, and these are not in the order we're going to play the games. I'll go by rounds, but Black Iron, he picked the Beastman. So hoo-wee. Janet, he picked the Greenskins. So this is a really neat. I've got like a kind of an internal mirror match where I'm going to play as the Greenskins against the Beastmen and play as the Beastmen against the Greenskins, which is really, really neat. Jet picked the Lizardmen. So that's going to be interesting. Have some big units up on there. Ragnarok picked the Tomb Kings. So Tomb Kings against the Dark Elves. I don't know how that matchup actually lines up. Shadow picked Chaos. Yes, Chaos. So I've got the Lizardmen up against them, and Turin also picked Chaos. So I'm going to face Chaos twice. I know Chaos can be rough as the Dwarfs because their infantry outclasses my infantry. That's the one worry that I have with Chaos with the Dwarfs, is their infantry is just really, really good. It's kind of like Chaos is just like, for infantry, a better version of the High Elves. High Elves have good infantry at the top tier, like their Swordmaster Hoeth are outstanding, but their White Lions are kind of But Chaos Warriors are really good. Chosen are good. So really, it's a bit of a tough matchup, but that's what the lineup looks like. Here we go. Beastmen against the Greenskins. I'll be playing against Black Iron. I'll be playing the Greenskins. I'm going to be playing my Beastmen against Jen on occasions Greenskins. I'm going to be playing the Tomb Kings against Jedar's Lizardmen. I'm going to be playing the Dark Elves against Ragnarok's Tomb Kings. I'm going to play the Lizardmen against Shadow's Chaos, and the Dwarfs against Turin's Chaos. So that is the lineup. That's kind of the video. I know it's a long video. As I said, if we got people just coming on back, looking at the summary, really that's the summary, and yeah. So I don't really have much else to go beyond that. That was really my thinking in the selection phase. I did play some games on ladder. I also set up a room in the multiplayer room. I had a chance to play with Deacon and Zardar as well, to just do some training and some testing. You know, and you know what? That's funny, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, I know Zardar is a way better player than me. Like, his micro, and Deacon's micro is better than my micro. You know, because I've had a lot of chance to play with them, but. That's my lineup. It's time to really think about how I'm going to build my armies, what I'm going to plan for, to start doing my research onto what I think the matchup will be. I mean, I have a sometimes 60-hour-a-week job. You know, I have a 30-year career in engineering, so sometimes I get busy. So hopefully I can do enough planning to at least make the games interesting, to bring some planning and testing to the games so that they're interesting for you guys. And hopefully those of you that like this analysis part, like thinking their way through these things, love to hear some comments from you guys, thoughts about my picks, especially from, I know some of you guys are also really dwarf only players. You know, Soulhammer, what I hear from you, Javier, like, I know you play the dwarfs. You know, what are your thoughts on my thinking through this? And some of you other guys that just play the dwarfs, you know, how would you think about these things? I mean, I can't undo this. I'm stuck with what I got, but you know, just the whole thought process for you, and maybe some thoughts on the matchups. You know, Beastmen versus Greenskins, Lizardmen, Tomb Kings, Dark Elves, Chaos Lizardmen, and Chaos versus Dwarfs. And I'd love to hear from you. Everyone knows I love comments, and I really find them so interesting because I mean, you guys, a lot of you guys really have a good, clear way of thinking about things, or an interesting perspective that gets me thinking, and I always have a chance to learn and think about things from a new perspective. So I love the comments. Want to hear some comments down below. I can't wait. Hope you found that interesting, and I will see you soon.